Hey everybody, welcome. I am so glad to be with you in the studio again. Happy Monday, I guess. Happy Monday it is. Off to a new start, another great week in the new year. Can you believe we are headed toward mid-month already? It's crazy to think that we are already heading towards halfway through January. These weeks go faster and faster and faster, but I am grateful that you take a few minutes of your time to be with me in studio. This is my paint party live stream. It is my learn to paint journey. Several years ago, I started teaching myself to paint using primarily YouTube tutorials, and since that time, I've expanded my experience, but I always try to meet you here nearly every Monday night in the studio on this live stream on YouTube primarily, but I do syndicate across a variety of platforms. So no matter where you're watching, I'm glad that you're with me. You can participate in the live stream via the comments on whatever platform you're on. So feel free to ask questions, make comments, or make observations as we go along. I really enjoy interacting with you during the live stream. Generally, I have been doing a variety of different types of paintings. I paint primarily in oils. For the first several years, I used acrylics and now have transferred over to oil. And I've been exploring and doing some different things over the last few months, doing some studies and different master copies, that type of thing. However, and I probably will continue those, but tonight I am going to be working on this painting you see behind me. It was one I started years ago in acrylics, and so I have been going over and refining it. I never finished it, but I do want to finish it just for my own knowledge and experience and growth. And so I am actually finishing it in oils. And so it's kind of interesting to see where I started in acrylics and where my understanding was and where it is going now. So that's what we'll be working on this evening. And then in the future, we'll probably go back to some master copies and studies as I gain specific and home in on specific skills or specific things that I want to learn to render. So let's jump in. Let me get this switched over my camera right here while I set up the rest of my camera work so that you can see my canvas panel. This is on an 8x10, I believe, canvas panel. So let's see. Let me get that set up. How's everybody's week? How's your week going? Let me get my comments up here so I can see what you are commenting. If you choose to do so. Again, you can engage in the comments on whatever platform you are watching on. Let's see. I think that's pretty accurate. Welcome, everybody just flooding in. Not flooding in, but everybody coming in. So glad to be with you. All right, and let me put the reference that I'm looking at is this one. This is the reference of the Parthenon, of course. And one of the challenges with this, those of you that have been around long enough that you remember my Mont Saint-Michel painting that I worked on for weeks and weeks and weeks many years ago will remember how difficult it is to paint stonework that is primarily the same color. And you have to figure out a way with very slight gradation as far as the values are concerned to render things like shape, shadow, form, all of these things. And so that's really a challenge. And that's why I do these types of paintings, is because it helps me to get more refined and really think about values in a much more narrow gradient as far as the scale in my values, which is the light and dark and the difference between those. Because things with high contrast, a subject matter with really dark darks and really light lights is actually a little more easy sometimes to render than something like this, where it's bright sunlight, bright morning sun. It's not necessarily the best time to take this photo, but it is still a really striking subject just because of the subject and what it is. So, but you can see essentially all the stone is the same color, and all of the shadows are, there's just very little differentiation in the shadows. So that's why we're doing it, and that's what we're working on. All right, let me jump over. There you can see where I am in the painting. Again, I started this in acrylic, so the sky is still acrylic. I haven't touched that, but I did do essentially another layer of oils on top of this and redefined my shadow areas and the pillars. And so I'm going to be refining some of this. One of the other challenges that I want to think about as I do this is that the photo is going to capture every single little detail. And in the painting, I don't have to capture all of those. I don't have to capture all of the details. And so I want to really think about what is the most important in the detail capturing, and what do I want to leave very loose or very like undefined. Like you look at these steps down here and they read as stairs. So do I need to go in and put every single shadow in and every single little block? I don't think that I need to, but that is something that I want to be thinking about as I dive in. I don't want to just dive into this and start creating a, I want to also make sure my lights are a little more, because this is really yellow. And so I want to make sure my lights are cool so that I am seeing how this really is compared. And you can see that on you can see how yellowed it looks. It's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just next to the reference photo, obviously the stone is not that yellow. However, it may be valuable in rendering what we're trying to render because it does have a little bit of a yellow hue to it. We just need to decide if that's as detailed as we want it to be. So those are all the things going through my head. What is going through y'all's head? I am curious. I hope that you are having a good week as we get jumping into this. What I'd like to do actually is, I think I used the last time I painted this, I think I used a little bit of medium. So I want to use my next stage of medium. This is my second most fat medium, which is basically means that it has a little more oil in it. That way we have a fatter layer on top as we do this. So let's think about what is the first thing we really need to look at. When I look at this image, what is it that I want to start with? What would I think clarifying these pillars a little more would help to do this. But I think this is going to need to be through refining the sky a little bit, maybe. And I'm trying to think. Let's see, what would be the ideal brush for this? Probably something like this. Let me maybe this. Okay, so I think what I'm going to do is I am going to And I don't know. I hope my comments are coming. If you're making comments and they're not coming through, I apologize. Every once in a while, they will do that. But sometimes it's just, everybody's just quiet on the live stream, which is fine. Okay, I want to mix sky color. I'm going to mix some sky color and look at this. I need, let's see, I need some more yellow ochre here. So I'm just going to put that on the palette. Let me see what that looks like about the right. Now I do want to create. Hey there, Carol. Thanks so much. It's so good to see you. I hope you're well. I saw you the other day down walking across Main Street, but I was in my car, so I didn't get a chance to say hello in person. What I'm going to do is, again, this is all acrylic here, but I want more of a gradient in this sky. So I do want it lighter down as we get closer to the horizon, and it needs to be a little more green down there because there's less atmosphere down towards the horizon. So I'm going to mix that color, kind of lighten it up down here and see what we can do. What I want to do is come in and really refine these shapes. So I want to use my brush almost like a scalpel and carve and recarve out some of these shapes to make them more accurate. It'll give us really hard lines, but that's okay. I'm looking at, again, I'm just drawing shapes in. This is and I may have to come in and correct my pillars as well. I'm realizing that these are way off, but this is so recognizable that people will get it. And the angle from which this reference photo was taken is so, it looks like these pillars are leaning in this way. So that's the other thing I need to really think about is going to have to do, I think, some pretty major work on this. This pillar. Ooh, I don't know. We'll do the initial. Yeah, because this needs to move over a little bit. This one might be in the right place now, but it needs to be a little bit more like this. And then this one needs to slant over. This needs to slant. This one needs to slant over a little bit, and this one needs to slant so that we get the perspective that we're down here looking up at this. When you start correcting these things, you recognize, because I came in here and put these pillars in based on what I knew in my head. I'm like, oh, they are straight like this, but then these ones look all wonky because they almost look like they're tilting outward. So we need all of them kind of, the perspective needs to be almost like they're tilting like this and they're tilting like this because we're taking it from down below, if that makes sense. And this is so high. That will give us hopefully the sense that it is such a high, vantage. So we'll put some sky in here and kind of, that will give us the sense that that's in the background. Here there is no sky visible, but there is a little bit along this. So I'm going to start correcting this angle a little bit and put in a little bit of sky there. And we can adjust that as we go. Now, I'm going to keep doing this on this side. I'm going to correct some of the sky so that I can see what is off over here. So the sky is, and it should help some of that look like, oh, it's not leaning as much. Okay, so this one we need, maybe down. Oh, that's not. Yeah. Now, we'll need to bring our, I think, our pillar will need to come out this way, about like that. So we may need to, we'll need to probably stretch this pillar over. here, there is a little bit of sky visible. Then again, this needs to be the most straight. Needs to be the most straight pillar of everyone. This should be pretty straight on. So we want to get our kind of like that. And then this one, it comes down. It's almost straight. Because it's the first one right next to it. So these two are just barely leaning in, if that makes sense. All right, then let me come in over here. On this one, we need quite a bit more. This is leaning a little bit, so it needs to come in this way. Okay. This one should be fairly straightforward. So we'll need more than, yeah, we'll carve in some of these posts. In the back, we need a little sky, and then it goes like that. Then we have a little, this one is a little bit like this, and then that is it. So that can help us, because this roof goes behind there, and we just need it to basically line up all these spaces behind. There is one additional space right in here that is we'll have to see. I think I need to bring this up a little bit. And then let me see. want to see what is this, then needs to come there, there. That's why I think this needs to come over. Okay, I think that's kind of where we are. Putting that sky back in really does help us see the structure of what's happening behind this. So I think that's good. And then here, want to kind of see if I can carve this a little bit. This is, I think, a really... There we go. This then. I mentioned that I had done this in acrylic first. And that's something you want to keep in mind if you paint at all, or if you ever plan to paint. You can go oil over acrylic. You don't ever want to go acrylic over oil. So that's just a little tip. I don't want a lot of detail back here, but I want it to look like there's detail back here, if that makes sense. So I want to use this to my advantage to kind of carve in some I think that's all. Then we want to come up into here. And eventually I'll do another layer where we are, we're coming up into this. That will give us the realism to this sky, because there will be different layers that you'll see kind of. Because I love the really high contrast at the top, where it's really cobalt. But let's see. Let's see. Is anybody watching? Anybody in the chat watching on YouTube? I'm just curious if, for some reason, my stream is not hitting YouTube live. Let's see. Yep, it does show me. I am. Oh, it's showing me this is 180. Oh, so I didn't set it up right. Okay. Because it gives me It shows I'm doing 183. I must not have set it up right. That's why. Okay. Well, this is 184. We'll correct it. But we are live, so that's a good. That's a good. That's a good. Okay. Now let's look at, I'm going to step back from the painting, and I need my old man glasses so I can see if I think yeah, I think we're getting there if we have the if I make sure that these pillars get corrected. I think the sky looks great. Like it's going to be okay. So that's what we should focus on. Now, let me look at, whoa, sorry. Didn't mean to bump your, so let me see what this, I'm going to take some measurements because I want to see where my drawing is off. Let me put this up here so I can measure a little bit. Okay. From the edge to the top of that stair is like this. Okay, so that's pretty close. Pretty close. Maybe a little, maybe like right in there. Okay, so let me make a mark. It's maybe like right in there. Okay, that helps me see where it's off a little bit. The stairs aren't too bad, but they're a little off. This one is, that's about perfect. Okay, so we just need to come up a little bit on the stairs. And let me see back here. So we need to come. Okay, so it needs to be at the bottom of this little red dot. Okay, so that helps me see. This in here, because I can see that it's off. Right there. That's correct. But this needs to be wider and come out almost to the, so let's correct one thing at a time. In doing so, I am going to take a little white. Oops, that's blue. I messed up because I took some white. Okay, take white here. We need a little brown. No, I think I have. Okay, there we go. Let's take a little brown. We'll redden it up. Okay, I think that is good. We want to take a little bit of yellow, mix it in. I think the value is pretty good on this. Okay, so I want to take, this is correct. but I want to take this out to basically there. So we need to come okay. And then this one, we want to bring it in. So this one is over here. It basically meets this down here. So we'll correct one at a time. Now, what we need in order to do this correctly is we need our shadow, but I wonder, can I use this for a shadow? I think I can. Okay, so what I want to do then is, hey there, I need to copy a shadow, and this is what I was talking about, the difficulty of shadow work. So we're going to take a little blue and a little black, or a little brown and blue. That's going to give us that dark shadow color. So we want to come in here and do, but we don't want it so dark we can't see in there. So I'm going to put, it's like this great brown gray. We'll see if this works. Let's come in here and start drawing in as specifically as we can. This. Again, in the end, it's going to be these sharp lines that are going to sell this. Okay. Now, and I need a little bit right there. Then we get because we need a, in order to make this work, we need a pretty sharp shadow line down the side of all the way off the screen almost, or canvas, because that will give us the edge of this pillar and the edge of that pillar. Okay, so, and then we need to gives us this kind of across there. Then we'll come in with that color behind there and we'll carve that out later so that it's very defined. But we need to do the same over here. We really need this to come from here. Okay. Again, see how we're already, these two seem to be leaning a little more. And then this one I'm going to have to adjust significantly. This one as well. But then we should get, because right now it looks like this one's straight up, this one's tilted out, this one's tilted in. So we need to correct those little things. Because this one needs to come basically in and then it needs to end over here, basically. And that will give us more space in between these to show the things we need to. But again, now I can see the strength of the skills I've built in the last 3 or 4 years since I first did this painting. My drawing is, you know, it's off, and I can say, okay, this is where it's off. Now this one, I want to come up and bring it. Again, I'm just trying as much as possible to look at shapes. And then later I'll be able to maybe go in and put in some additional nuance in these shadows, but I want to get the shape correct so that it reads correctly. Yeah, this all has to come over. This has got we'll see. Okay. I need to come over with that blue. So let me go back to my sky blue. This now. And I need to I want to, the perspective should be skewed on purpose. Hey, Brandon, thanks for popping in. It's so good to see you. I hope your kiddos are growing so quick. Oh my gosh. I hope that things are well. Are you still selling vintage cars? I don't get on social as often, and so I don't keep up with what everyone's doing. We should definitely catch up sometime. Would love to hear how business is and what new endeavors you're involved with. But life is generally pretty good here. It's treating me pretty good. All right. Now, we'll go back to our color of these pillars, and we'll start to this one is bright. So let's work on some of our and it comes down this way, and it is gonna come to about, needs to come to about there. So again, we want to draw the shape that's there, not the shape our eye sees, because your eye will kind of mess with you. Not selling car. Call anytime. I'll message my number. Yeah, send me a PM. Let's definitely catch up. Would love to. I was in Little Rock for like basically about 24 hours this year for a medical kind of emergency. Not mine, but I'm hoping to get back to Arkansas and have more time to see people and catch up with people. Miss everybody there. If you guys ever get out to the Black Hills, let me know. Would love to share my favorite sights and haunts around this part of the country. Okay. We're eventually going up here with the stairs, so we want to slowly come up there. So I'm gonna kind of put a new line in just so I can kind of picture where this stair needs to be. That will help with perspective as well. Again, what I want is the viewer to feel like they're standing at the foot of this amazing monument. So, and I'll have to come in again, I'm sure, and reestablish some of these lines so that they are so that they are a little more well defined. Let's take this in just a little tad. There's a bright kind of almost like a bluish, like the shadow color back here. So, but it is bright, bright, bright. So let's take that and give us some contrast. Again, this is all about values and the value relationship to these things. So, but if we get these subtleties right, then it's very clear. I don't know if it shows on your screen, but I have this little bit of value shift behind, and I'm using a little bit of a cooler shade, and all of a sudden it's like, okay, now I can see that structure back there. and I can tell that this one is behind that one. All right, let me step back just a minute. I don't do that near as often as I should. Need to step back. Okay. Sort of think that solves a little bit. Still seems a little wide. But the structure does look better. They're definitely slanting in. I think because these are off, I need to really, get these two correct, and then this will come over this direction, and then I can take some of this out. So let's keep working, see what we can do. The final stage with this painting, once I get this, because now you can really see the yellow here versus when I cooled this down a little bit, this looks like almost orange. So I want to get all of this that's in the sun pretty close to this. We might add some more white into this as we get more, because this is the highest part of the sun, and I'll bring it up into the top here. But then basically I'll go in and cut in all these lines so it's very sharp on here, because basically I want the eye to really focus here to be the most detailed. So I need the cleanest lines up here. And then I can go in and put some suggestions of stripes and shadows. I don't need to put an actual stripe all the way down. I just need to do the suggestion of those shadows, and then all of this will fall into place, if that makes sense. So we'll do a little bit of this, a little bit more white. Just a tad of yellow ochre. Okay, now let's look at these pillars. More. Let's look at this one. So, again, the more we carve in that detail, you just suggest it, and it's like, oh, now I see it, even though it's not really there. Like, we'll just put some suggestions. Okay, now, oops. I think part of it is this needs to come all the way out here, and then So this one, we need to go from here. It's pretty narrow. And it goes kind of right there. So it actually needs to end right about there. So let's take some more. We need some brown. That will give us a little bit of now. Then this needs to come this way. And our little, so now we bring our, this part over. We'll just call that this one needs to tilt this way too, this shadow here. Because that shadow is on a, looks like it's on a pillar. So it needs to also kind of come this way. There. It's wet on wet now, so we'll just have to be careful. This is there. And this one needs to come over. All right, let me step back real quick because each of these pillars, since I'm doing so much there's something off in okay, I think I see what's off. It's in this right here. That ledge, I'm painting it a little too much what I think I see instead of what I see, because we're looking up. Therefore, these shapes are all incorrect. But this is wet, that sky, so I'm going to have to wait until that dries to come in. These are sort of okay, but then I need to come in and make these. I can see it now. This the shape of these shapes right in here are not correct, and so it makes, there's not enough, like this is not deep enough to support that, you know, then it looks super wide down here. And I'm still not quite sure. This one I think needs to come out more here, like that. I'm not sure why this one looks a little narrow. I think it needs to be more plump. And then this, I think, comes out a little too much. So we need to actually come in. Let me, and now I'm just kind of playing with, so this needs to actually come in a little bit, this shadow there. I'm going to have to reestablish these, but I want to get the perspective correct. So this shadow needs to come over, and this needs to be more wide here. That way this one doesn't look so wide. There. That, I think, along with like widening this ledge so that it's deeper. Again, we're looking up, and this edge is right now is too much. We're seeing too much of this. Let me see if I can correct it a little bit. We're seeing way too much of this. We need to see a lot of these ledges, because we're looking up at it, so it needs to be much more deep, especially up here where we get into the kind of corner. Every little bit starts to make a difference. And this needs to be, my guess, let me measure. So from tip to top, tip of there to bottom there, tip of here. Yeah. So this little dip, based on what I have drawn currently, that bottom there should be right here. So that shows you like what's wrong with this. The drawing, how the drawing is off. So let me kind of reestablish this so we can see. We need to give it a lot more space. That will help all of our drawing be. We want the tip there and tip there and there. Okay, so the bottom of this is, yeah, so that needs to, a lot of that needs to be redrawn. Okay, but that helps, doesn't it? Because then we know we need kind of this type of a thing happening. Then it makes sense that we go here and that this is more, that this is more. Yeah, now all of a sudden this makes much more sense. And I'm just scribbling now because I'll have to come in and redo a lot of this in a different setting. But it helps me see what I'm doing wrong. This I'm very happy with, so, or pretty happy, so I don't want to touch that too much, but I do need to see from there to the top of that. So from there, the top of here to there, top of here to there. That's pretty accurate. Right there is correct. So let me see, from there to there, from there to there. It's pretty close. Needs to come down a little bit, but yeah, the drawing is getting more and more accurate as we go, so that's helpful. Then these things actually need to come down there. This needs to come down, but that's wet paint, so yeah. Let us see what we can do. Lettuce. Okay, so this here. I think it goes. We need it to. This should look bloated because it is. Not bloated, but it is, we're the closest to it. And again, we're looking up at it. So therefore, it definitely needs to be Yep. Let's see. Okay. Now this behind here has to come down. This has to do more like something more like this. I'll have to get much more precise about this, but gives us the idea. Let me step back. Yeah, there's a few wonky things, but I think we're getting much better, much better. Now let me see if I can do some of this. Now, let's see. I want to measure between ooh, this is way off. This is supposed to be something like this. And yeah. And okay. So it's supposed to This is... That helps, because it's way off again. Way off again. Now, let's see if we bring in... We need to come in something like this. Ooh, ooh, ooh. But they need to, so this one needs to come in, basically. Something like this. Step back. What do you guys think? Are my columns on the right side looking a little more correct? I know there's a few wonky things right in here that I need to correct, but when you just look at it, is it looking more? I think it is. This is definitely looking more, even though there's not a lot of detail, it's definitely giving that like feel that we're looking up at this, especially when we come in here and do, we're looking up at this big edifice. Because this was off, I was trying to make all of this fit in what I thought it looked like instead of what it actually looks like. This definitely needs and I don't need a lot of detail in here. Yeah. Then I need to needs to be lighter. Okay. Let's see. Let me step back again. Look at what I did. Yeah. And I also like the variation of this stone. Oops, that's not what I wanted to do. Shoot. Should always be thinking. The variation in the stone. Cooling it down a little bit really gives it but and then I want to come in here, start. I think this one is fairly correct. I need to come in, I think, with this. Do you think it needs a little more? Okay. Let me try to come in here. This needs to be okay. Now I need this to do some of this, just to kind of because this is wet into wet, of course, again. So we just need to try to want to give the shape. Even though the shadow doesn't come down this long, I'll be able to go light over dark much easier once it dries. This will give us a feel of that there are we'll see if that holds up. Not sure that it will, but okay. Okay, let's take this and do just some suggestions. Okay. Because then this gives us something to measure against the next time we come back to this painting. These types of paintings, like Mont Saint-Michel, take so much more time to get correct, but when they do, that is such a, like, it's incredible, like that. The look and the, when it really sells the illusion, it's breathtaking. And that's what I'm going for with this painting. Is, I know obviously everybody recognizes this, you know, it's a landmark, but then I want the feeling literally that you're standing right there. This is one of the reasons I'm changing up kind of the background. Obviously the background looks like all the same as far as the color, but I want it to recede even farther into the background. And I don't want a whole lot of details back here. I just want them to kind of disappear into the yeah. Okay, let me step back. I'm really liking this. Really, really liking this. It'll take a little bit more work. Little more. But pretty fantastic how it's going. Yeah, we'll blend all this in. But it'll give some great depth to what we're trying to do. It even looks really kind of cool with some clouds up over there, or the suggestion of clouds in the distance. Look how much this pops out just by dulling down. Even though I don't see that in the thing, this is already reading in the shadows. And when we redefine those shadows, it's going to be so cool. Okay, I think we almost have our, like, it feels like these are all slanted this way. These are mostly, I have to fix this a little bit, I think. There's something going on here that isn't quite kosher. I think it's up in here. We need more. We just need more of this kind of design. I'm not sure, but we'll get it figured out. And then we'll bring the sky in. Maybe take it down. There we go. Maybe that's it. These things. And then we'll bring our sky up and bring our sky down. Yeah, I love it. Love it, love it, love it. We need a little bit of the dark. Into this. We need to bring our, we don't want it too monochromatic. So there we go. Yeah, we want definitely darker there. Lots to do, lots to do. But it's starting to look really cool, in my humble opinion. So I think y'all that are still with me, there might be a couple of you out there. I think that's where we're gonna stop. Let me bring you back here. And we will say good night properly. Okay. Yep. I'll show you what we've done, and that way you can look at it straight on. Last week, I finished this little one. That's the one we were working on last week. I did another couple of sessions with it. I oranged up this, and I think it pops a lot better with the kind of red tone in the field. Such a great little painting. Actually, I think we're gonna try to hang that in our local little gallery here, see if it sells. This is where we are with this one tonight. Look at that. Even just looking at the image in my camera, I'm really pleased with how that's coming. And I think it was really a wise decision to do the gradient sky. I mean, the dark blue was super, like, it made an impression, but it was almost not realistic. It was more illustrator type, where I think this feels much more like you're standing right there. And if I get all these angles figured out again, correctly, and all of this detail, then it's going to look like you're looking right up at the Parthenon. So that's what I'm going for with that one. And I think I'm going to leave it fairly loose because I like this style. On the stairs, there's not a lot of detail on the stairs. Notice that. But I like that feel that it looks, you can tell exactly what it is and it reads exactly like what it is, but it is very clearly a painting of it when you get up close. There's just not a lot of detail at all. And I like that. So I will say thank you for joining me, and I hope that you will come back next Monday evening. I am here 6 p.m. Mountain Time every Monday evening for the Paint Party live stream. Thanks so much for joining me. I hope you have a great week, and I will see you next time, everybody. Have a good night.